Money does not ruin lives. Lack of discipline does. Time does not betray you. Your own loose tongue does. Let me tell you something that most people will never have the courage to admit. Your life is not stuck because of bad luck, because of the economy, or because someone failed to recognize your talent. Your life is stuck because you reveal what should be cultivated in silence. I learned this the hard way. Early in my business career, before the wealth, before the stability, before the respect, I confused transparency with wisdom. I believed that sharing every plan made me trustworthy. I believed that exposing every ambition made me bold. I once sat at a negotiation table with investors and revealed a strategic expansion before the contracts were secured. I wanted to impress them. I wanted to appear powerful. Instead, I armed my competition. Within months, an opportunity that could have changed my trajectory was diluted, copied, and strategically cornered. I walked away with less than I had envisioned, not because I lacked intelligence, but because I lacked restraint. Listen carefully. There are things you must never reveal if you want your life to move forward. Not because you are manipulative, not because you are secretive, but because growth requires incubation. Seeds do not grow when exposed to constant digging. Foundations crack when inspected by those who do not understand architecture. You say you want prosperity, but do you understand the cost of premature exposure? You say you want peace, but do you announce every internal battle to people who have never built anything themselves? Let me ask you directly. Do you want to prosper, or do you want to appear impressive? Do you want legacy or applause? Do you want peace, or do you want to prove that you are right? The first thing you must never reveal is your long-term strategy before it has structure. I am not speaking about healthy counsel. I believe deeply in wise advisors. I study sacred texts at night and review contracts by day. Counsel is different from exposure. Counsel is selective. Exposure is emotional. When you speak about your vision to everyone, you invite opinions from people who have never carried the weight of responsibility. I have seen talented entrepreneurs announce their ideas at family gatherings, on social media, at casual dinners, seeking validation. Validation is cheap. Execution is sacred. Wealth reveals who you already are. If you are insecure, money will magnify insecurity. If you are disciplined, money will magnify discipline. The same is true for vision. When your plans are still fragile, they require silence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. In my early years, I shared a real estate acquisition plan with a colleague who seemed supportive. Within weeks, that information traveled across circles I did not control. Prices shifted. Sellers hesitated. Competitors positioned themselves. I realized something painful. Not everyone who smiles at your table is committed to your covenant. Since then, I have guarded strategy like a sacred contract. I speak after execution. I reveal after results. This is not arrogance. This is stewardship. The second thing you must never reveal is your deepest vulnerabilities to those who have not earned the right to hold them. There is a difference between authenticity and emotional exhibition. I have faced seasons of financial strain. I have made decisions that cost me millions. I have doubted myself in silence while maintaining composure in public. During one economic downturn, a partnership collapsed unexpectedly. Cash flow tightened. Pressure mounted. I felt the weight of responsibility for employees and families connected to my decisions. In a moment of frustration, I confided in someone who enjoyed proximity to power but had never carried it. My vulnerability became quiet gossip. My temporary weakness became a narrative about my supposed decline. I learned something that day that no business school teaches. Your vulnerability is sacred currency. Spend it wisely. Share it only within covenant relationships built on loyalty, character, and shared responsibility. You may think that revealing every fear makes you relatable, but if the person listening lacks maturity, they will use your confession to measure your decline. Listen carefully. Strength is not pretending you never struggle. Strength is choosing where to struggle. It is choosing who has access to your internal battles. Even within family, discernment matters. You protect your children not by hiding reality, but by filtering it through stability. You protect your team not by lying, but by carrying weight without spreading panic. Emotional discipline builds empires. Emotional impulsiveness destroys them. The third thing you must never reveal is the full measure of your resources. I am not speaking only about money. I am speaking about connections, leverage, spiritual insight, negotiating limits, capacity to endure. When you reveal your maximum capacity, you weaken your position. In negotiations, I rarely show the full extent of what I can afford. I never reveal the full range of who stands behind me. Not because I fear scarcity, but because wisdom preserves leverage. I once watched a brilliant founder disclose the total capital available for a project. Immediately, contractors adjusted their expectations upward. Costs inflated, respect diminished. The room sensed abundance and decided to consume it. Wealth handled without structure invites consumption. Wealth handled with restraint commands honor. Even spiritually, this principle applies. When you broadcast every charitable act, every spiritual breakthrough, every intimate prayer victory, you dilute its power. There is sacred strength in quiet generosity. There is authority in unseen discipline. If I had understood this earlier, I would have avoided several costly lessons. The world does not reward exposure. It rewards results. Now let me go deeper. Why does revealing these things keep your life stuck? Because exposure attracts interference. When you speak prematurely, you invite opinions that weaken conviction. When you expose vulnerability carelessly, you invite doubt. When you reveal capacity without boundaries, you invite exploitation. Prosperity requires structure. Structure requires discipline. Discipline requires silence. I have negotiated multi-million-dollar agreements where the most powerful tool in the room was not my argument, but my restraint. Silence creates gravity. People lean in. They reveal more than they intended. They negotiate against themselves. The same principle applies to life. When you speak less about your goals, you work more on your goals. When you complain less about your struggles, you solve more of your struggles. When you display less of your wealth, you protect more of your wealth. This is not about secrecy driven by fear. It is about stewardship driven by responsibility. I have built businesses while studying ancient wisdom. The sacred texts speak often about guarding the tongue, not because speech is evil, but because speech creates reality. Words form agreements. Words shape identity. Words build or erode trust. In my earlier years, I believed enthusiasm was enough. I believed passion compensated for lack of restraint. It does not. Passion without discipline is noise. Discipline without passion is cold. But disciplined passion expressed at the right time becomes power. You want to know why many lives remain stagnant. It is not lack of intelligence. It is lack of containment. Energy scattered produces little. Energy focused produces momentum. A river without banks floods and destroys. A river with structure generates electricity. Which one are you becoming? You tell everyone about the book you plan to write, the investment you are about to make, the transformation you are beginning. You receive applause before effort. You receive validation before sacrifice. Your brain mistakes attention for achievement. Then when obstacles appear, motivation fades because the emotional reward was already consumed. I have seen this pattern repeatedly. Quiet builders outlast loud dreamers. The person who speaks least about expansion often executes it with precision. The family that protects its internal matters maintains stability. The leader who absorbs pressure without dramatizing it builds trust. Responsibility is heavy, but it creates authority. Do not misunderstand me. I am not advocating isolation. I am advocating discernment. I have trusted advisors. I have mentors. I have spiritual companions. But access is earned through loyalty, shared values, and demonstrated character. Covenant before confession. Alignment before exposure. This principle preserved my marriage, protected my children, stabilized my companies. When storms came, and they always come. We navigated them internally before announcing adjustments externally. By the time the world noticed, the foundation was already reinforced. That is strategy. That is maturity. Let me tell you something else. Money is a tool, not an identity. When you reveal wealth to impress, you reveal insecurity. When you conceal wealth to protect purpose, you reveal wisdom. I have attended events where individuals displayed luxury as proof of success. Often those same individuals were leveraged beyond safety, chasing image over stability. True prosperity is quiet. It invests. It builds reserves. It thinks in decades, not days. It asks different questions. Will this decision strengthen the next generation? Will this contract preserve integrity? Will this alliance align with our values? Legacy requires restraint. Ego demands exposure. Choose carefully. You may be thinking that silence feels lonely. At times it is. There were seasons when I carried decisions that affected thousands, yet discussed them with only a small circle. The weight refined me. It forced me to pray with sincerity. It forced me to calculate with precision. It forced me to confront my own fears without broadcasting them. That is where character is formed, not in applause, in accountability, not in noise, in quiet responsibility. If you cannot hold a vision privately, you are not ready to execute it publicly. So here is the synthesis. Guard your strategy until it has structure. Guard your vulnerabilities until trust has been proven. Guard your resources until leverage has been secured. These are not tricks. They are principles. They align with spiritual wisdom and business reality. Prosperity with purpose demands containment. Discipline above emotion. Responsibility above impulse. Silence before expansion. You want your life to move. Then stop leaking energy through unnecessary revelation. Stop seeking validation for unfinished work. Stop confusing transparency with maturity. Reconnect your ambition with faith. Study deeply, plan carefully, speak selectively, act decisively, build slowly, build solidly. A house constructed on spectacle collapses under pressure. A house constructed on discipline endures storms. I have witnessed fortunes rise and fall. The difference was rarely intelligence. It was character. It was restraint. It was the ability to hold vision without announcing it, to endure struggle without dramatizing it, to possess resources without flaunting them. If you remember nothing else, remember this: what you protect grows. What you expose prematurely weakens. Wealth reveals who you already are. If you cultivate discipline, silence will empower you. If you cultivate ego, exposure will destroy you. Choose structure, choose responsibility. Choose legacy over applause, and understand this final truth. Your life is not waiting for more opportunity. It is waiting for more restraint.